Hey, this is Keena B, and welcome to Say Anything. Say anything.
Why can't you just say anything?
I'm gonna say anything.
People just say anything.
I swear, people just say anything. Welcome to Say Anything with Keena B. Hey, welcome to Say Anything with Keena B. I am Keena B. Thank you so much for joining me. And today, we will be discussing being authentic and what that means. I hope you all are having a fabulous Monday. As you can see, we are in the market. If you're watching on Spotify or listening on Spotify, then you have the option to see a video. However, if you are listening on YouTube, it's not going to show the video because I have it connected through the Spotify app, so it's like our RSS, and what it does is it sends the audio but not the video. I would have to upload it separately. So just an FYI, if you're listening on YouTube, that is why you cannot see the video, but I actually am on video at the market today. And as I already mentioned, we're going to be talking about authenticity. And for those of you who cannot see me, I'm wearing overalls and I have a bandana on, and I'm just as casual as can be. And I typically am a very casual, laid-back person. And so why authenticity is the discussion today is that a lot of times I will look at the YouTube videos that give suggestions on how to have a podcast or how to have the best podcast, or even just in life when a person is running a business. They will always say, well, bring your authentic self. When you're creating content online, they'll say, bring your authentic self. Or it's like some cliche word at this point, to bring your authentic self. And I actually believe in being an authentic person. However, depending on the setting that you're in, authenticity may not be warranted nor appropriate. So I'm going to start with the definition of authenticity, just as randomly defined by your Oxford Dictionary. And so what they have here basically are synonyms of authenticity, such as genuineness, originality, legitimacy, that's interesting, legality, trustworthiness, dependability, veracity, faithfulness. And so when defining authenticity, they are using it to mean, are you trustworthy? Are you bringing the truth? Are you being honest about who you are? And even more so, it's about, is something, you know what? A good example of what is it? The opposite of authenticity, fakeness, or inauthentic. An inauthentic person would be Rachel Dolezal, mainly because she put on the persona of an African American woman or Black American woman, and she herself was born Caucasian. She was born an American Caucasian, okay? And then at some point in her life took on the persona of a Black woman to the point of forging documents. And then up until today, I believe she is still hanging on to the persona of a Black person. I don't know if it's mental illness. I really can't say. I don't know what her deal is, but she was even hired and on record as a Black woman for business, even though it was proven that she was something other than born a Black woman. Now, That would be inauthentic, right? When it comes to legitimacy. Now, what she believes is completely something different, because then we're going into her mental status, and I don't have the qualifications to determine if she believes that she is authentically what she says. Okay, so that is an example of an inauthentic person. When your truth doesn't match reality. And when discussing authenticity, I like to think of it just as I said, when your truth doesn't match the actual reality. And this gets me into like when motivational speakers or inspirational speakers like to talk a lot about affirmations and manifesting. They'll say you have to speak those things. And even biblically, it says you speak those things that are not as though they were, right? But the reality of a situation and then what you're speaking are not always the same. And so it always leads me to the question of, is there an issue when what you believe or should be reality is not actually reality, and what you're presenting as is not actually reality? The term fake it till you make it, that right there. When is it inauthentic, and when are you being authentic? And I always think for myself, as long as you are able to acknowledge what the actual reality of a situation is, and then you're able to be honest with people and forthright about what the reality of a situation is, then you're bringing your authentic self. That doesn't mean that mistakes don't happen, but you are able to name it and claim it and say, hey, this is what I'm hoping, but this is the actual truth of the matter. This is what I am working toward, but this is the actual reality in this present moment. And as long as you're able to do that, regardless of who you're talking to or who you're working with, then you're being your authentic self. So that's more inward. Then I'm thinking outwardly, what is bringing your authentic self to the table? And it's how you dress, how you behave, how you talk. Are all those things indicative of authenticity? And who gets to determine when you're authentic and when you're not, other than yourself? Like, who actually gets to say, oh, you're not bringing your authentic self, when you are? I think people are far more complicated than one-dimensional behavior or one-dimensional ways of thinking. We're not linear. And when people say bring your authentic self to the table, or bring your authentic self to content, or bring your authentic self to the workplace, 100% of you is not able to go into a workplace all the time. Like, if you see me today, like I mentioned, I'm in overalls, and I have a bandana on. Well, I own an art gallery, and I'm moving around a lot, and I'm cleaning or I'm painting. It would be appropriate for me to be casual and wear overalls and a bandana in the space that I am in. But if I was working in a corporate setting that was not built on a culture of comfort or not built on a culture of casualness, then what I am wearing would not be appropriate. It would not mean that I would not be being my authentic self, even though I prefer to be casual. It would just mean that I'm being my appropriate authentic self in that situation. It's just like they say in a lot of workspaces, they'll say, oh, bring your authentic self. And then when a person shows up with a particular hairstyle, suddenly they're in an office and they're getting a lecture on professional hairstyles. Now, that is a different question, right? I was never a person to have my hairstyles, dictated to me, nor did I change my hairstyles to suit an atmosphere. I'm a Black woman. I wear my hair natural. I've worn my hair natural the majority of my adult life. And what that means is I might have a fro one day, I might have braids the next week, I might do cornrows, I might do twists, and I might even press my hair occasionally, but then let it go back to its natural state. But you typically won't see me in a wig, not in my adult life. When I was younger, in my younger 20s, I have worn the sew-ins, I have worn the wigs, and I did it for protective stylings, and I did it outside of protective stylings, just to fit into whatever situation and work situation that I was in. And then you kind of get sick of that, right? So the question is, and I've also had the experience of wearing a wig to an interview, and then once I have the job, showing up in my natural hair. I have done that. The question is, was I being inauthentic when I showed up in the interview with the wig, and then being authentic when I showed up to the actual job without it? Like, is it that I was being inauthentic, or was it that I was just being appropriate for the setting and time that I'm in? Based on the idea of what someone else might think of me. And that was in my earlier years. I'm way beyond that now. You just not gonna catch me in a wig. But but in my younger years, I used to play that game. And I guess that has to do with like code switching, just like but okay, you talk about code switching. I don't know a lot of, I was never that person who really knew a lot of slang or anything like that. I didn't grow up in a situation where I had access to a lot of people who said a lot of slang all the time. So I didn't have to code switch much. How I speak now is pretty much how I've always spoken. And even in situation, and it might be because my upbringing was a little bit different than some of my peers or cohorts that I was around in my later years. So, but I did not switch it depending on who I was talking to, because I always felt like my own voice was appropriate in any situation. And I would get teased for my own voice and how I spoke by a different variation of people. But I didn't know anything else. I did not know anything else other than the way that I spoke. So I always stuck with that. And even as an adult, I can always tell that when an environment is having an influence on how I speak, mainly my accent, because my accent has changed throughout the years. And then also pronunciation. I have had that happen, where there are some words that I have subtly, I'm having an issue saying that word. Maybe that's indicative of where I am. I've had these subtle changes, okay, in my pronunciation of some words, or enunciation of some words, and over the years. And it could also be that because I'm no longer in formal educational settings or formal business settings, that I've relaxed a lot when it comes to language, like when it comes to speaking and such. So that I have noticed, but overall I have the same voice tone, and it has never had it's never been a big deal to me. But I've heard other people talk about how it's a big deal to them, and they will change their voice, they will change their tone, they will change the level of it, the highness or the lowness, depending on who they are speaking to, whether they're on the phone or in a Zoom call or in person. Depending on who they're speaking to, they will switch it up. Is that being inauthentic? Is that not bringing your authentic self to the table? Because now I'm thinking, what happens when your coworkers, your family members, and all the different people in your life collide in one place? Which voice do you bring? Which person do you bring to the table? Which hairstyle? Which, and I think that for a lot of people is an issue. And that is when not bringing your authentic self can get you in trouble. It is when you are different to different people, and then those worlds collide and you don't know which person to be when you are all those people. I think it's not that you're playing a role, it's just that all roles suit you and all roles are you. So you have to find a way to marry them and to be the one whole person and stop fragmenting those different parts of yourself. If you are the fun, jovial person with your peers, you can still be your fun, jovial person with your coworkers. You just, turn down the volume of it. Don't give them all the information, right? Give them what's appropriate for work. And then if you are a really serious person, just naturally a serious person, turn it up or down based on where you are. It doesn't necessarily mean you can't be that serious person. Whatever your personality trait is, you turn it up and down depending on who you're with. Just like depending on the job that you go to for a job interview, you would change what you have on. If you want to work in corporate, you wear a suit. If you want to be a welder, you would wear what's appropriate for a welder's interview. If you want to be an artist, and you would wear what's appropriate for an artist. I just think that the word authenticity has been taken out of context in a lot of ways, but also misapplied, because there is a such thing as appropriateness, and when it's appropriate and when it is not appropriate. My top 5 thoughts on what is actually bringing authenticity to the table, no matter which table you're at, no matter what room you've walked into. For me, and this is my opinion, you might have different takes on that, and I would love to hear what they are, so leave them in the comments. But for me, the first thing is being as truthful and as honest as you can possibly be about yourself without divulging all of your information to people. Like, everybody doesn't have to know all of your business. I see some of these content creators out here sharing way too much of their personal lives. And then that creates this expectation that you will constantly be showing that part of your life. Don't do it. Like, save something for yourself, okay? Guard your heart and your mind, basically, okay? Guard your heart and your mind and your family, and share what's appropriate, and don't overshare, but be honest about what you're sharing. Do not overshare. Okay, what is another way that I am my authentic self? I wear what's comfortable to me so that I feel comfortable when I'm talking to people. I think one of the quickest ways to get somebody out of their mold or out of their head is for them to become uncomfortable, right? Because now they're fidgeting with whatever they have on versus paying attention to the conversation that they're having with another person, like I'm having this conversation with you. For me, Allowing myself to be quirky, because I am quirky, and knowing that can be kind of weird and quirky, and I will have those moments where, and giving myself grace for that, and embracing it actually is helpful, because I think I tried to hide a lot of that when I was younger, like the quirky or the weird parts of me. Now, I'm not out there oversharing, but what I am doing is allowing myself to be who I am, even if it's weird, and not beating myself down because of it, if weirdness comes through or quirkiness comes through, because you gotta be able to be a little weird sometimes. Well, love a good corny joke. Any joke that is corny, I'm here for. Okay, I'm here for all of that. I'm also good for some dark humor. Like, I love a little. Everybody, you gotta have a little bit of dark humor, in your life. Life is, because sometimes you laugh to keep from crying. So you gotta be able to kind of go with it. What's next? Being my authentic self. I will prepare a little bit, but not prepare all of it, because if I were to write a script for this, then I would be in my head all the time comparing what I'm actually saying to whatever script I have, and over rehearsing for what is meant to be an organic conversation, versus just making a few notes and then referencing them, which is what I do. I make a few notes and I reference them. But maybe it's because of the level that I'm at right now. So the level that I'm at says make a few notes. In time, things like that can change depending on what's happening. And it also can change depending on the subject matter. We're talking about authenticity. I don't feel like I have to have a 3-page research paper to talk about authenticity. But if we were talking about some type of social, economic situation, or something to do with very serious matters, then I might get more detailed and have references for the references, because not only would I have a responsibility to be my authentic self, but I would have a responsibility to have information to back up what I'm saying, as long as it's just not an opinion. And that's another thing. I actually will state my opinion. And, claim it, name it and claim it. It's my opinion. Because you have to be able to stand on some things. You can't always be neutral about everything. Every now and then you just gotta say what something is. Okay? You gotta be able to claim that thing. What's another way? So there's authenticity inwardly, and then there's authenticity outwardly. And I think I touched on a couple of different things, both inward and outward. Honesty, dress how you feel comfortable, be prepared, but don't be so prepared that you, what's the word? Be prepared, but don't be so prepared that you psych yourself out, and then you're constantly looking for perfection, when perfection is something you strive for, not something that you are. And embrace who you are, and flaws and all, or what others may perceive as flaws, and just use that and give yourself grace. All right, that's our conversation for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like, subscribe, follow. If you're on YouTube, hit that notification button. If you're on Spotify, please leave comments, no matter what platform you're listening to me on. And I hope that you have an amazing day.